from Africa, there's a certain, I don't know, a certain culture, a certain way that women are represented in that environment, and then coming to North America, things are a little different. Um, there's of late there's been a lot of been a lot of conversations about on multiple levels from girls in high school who are pushing to wear whatever they want to wear in school, and that it shouldn't really matter to their body, and nobody should really be able to tell them anything about that. And that if the boys in their class is having a problem, then that's their problem. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not the girl's problem. The women's movement has opened a lot of doors and pushed a lot of barriers. And in a lot of ways, there are a lot of guys who are trying to figure out what that new norm is. So, whether chivalry sometimes is not necessarily considered chivalry,
Yes.
in this new environment. So, from a guy's perspective, sometimes we might be a little bit confused as to what exactly it is that women actually really want. So, from your experience, from if you could speak a little bit about culturally,
Yes.
you're from Nigeria,
Yes.
right? So, culturally from Nigeria, what was the woman's role? And then coming here to North America, how did you, I don't know, shift or find a balance between the old and the new?
Well, first off, I mean, Africa is vast,
Yes.
and there's so many different cultures, so many different countries. So one size does not fit all. So my experiences are unique to my country, my area, my ethnicity, my family. Like there's so
Yes.
many variables, right? So for me, growing up, the role of the woman in my culture, women are revered.
Hmm.
I have rights. I have the protection of my community and my family.
Hmm.
Yeah, women are revered. So this is not to say that there isn't sexism or there aren't challenges or what have you, because there's this idea that a woman has her place,
Hmm.
right? Even within the thing of we respect you, but you have your place, and the man has. So culturally, the way lives work, you have things that are considered. You have like a women's sphere
Hmm.
of day-to-day life and a men's, and not in the North American sense of women in the kitchen, you cook, you take care of the, no. It's almost as if, okay, I'll give you an example. So in a village setting, you have an issue that will come up. So you have a women's council,
Hmm.
because the way women navigate through issues and things is different from the way men will.
Hmm.
So it's almost as if, okay, here's an issue, figure it out. You come, the women will come, the men will come to a joint council
Okay.
with spokespeople on each, right? This was the traditional way. And many African cultures were matriarchy. So, in terms of governance and things, it was women who made these, decisions that were at the table, and it had to pass through before action was taken. Post colonial, this is where the issue is coming. So, when you're so broken and beaten and you're surviving genocide, slavery, you feel powerless, you're going to do the next best thing, which is to oppress the next person
Hmm.
to you. This we're dealing with a post-colonial effect in terms of the divide between the sexes. This is an inherited condition for
Hmm.
us, because when you go back pre-colonial,
Hmm.
this was not our heritage.
Some people might say, I don't want to go too much off topic here, but some people might say, okay, so these were things that happened hundreds of years ago. Why is that relevant now?
What happened
The
100?
whole colonialism thing,
Oh no, it's still
slavery and all
happening
that.
now. It's just it's under a different. It's been rebranded,
Hmm.
and we're still feeling the effects of it. And we're still, there's so much that hasn't been dealt with, and this is the issue. Just because something happened a long time ago, it's of no consequence if you've actually never done the work. You know what I mean? Like, so time does not, I'm not one of, time does not heal all wounds. It's what you do in that time. And at this point in time, you know, we can see the effects, you know, in our communities. We see that we can't even have, you know, certain conversations. It's too painful. You see walls go up. People shut down. It's so painful that people feel, okay, if I deal with this, I'll either die or fight. You know what I mean? Like it's still happening.
Okay. Okay, so I want to get back to, you know, you as a woman, and so there was a certain way in which when you were in Nigeria, how long have you been in North America?
I've been in North America 20 years.
Okay. So living in Nigeria, and there was a certain, I guess, way that women were looked at and viewed. And coming to North America, things are a little different. And, you know, how did you adjust to the way things are here? Or do you find that there's much of a difference?
Um, well, my experience, you know, in terms of, you know, growing up, roles of women back home, I I saw women in every facet. Like when you look in terms of like the doers, the movers and the I saw many examples of women doing this. You know, business women, politicians, like they hold every role. So, you know, without the woman in Africa, not a good situation. So I had a lot of great role models. Coming over here, though, the feminist message was very confusing for me as a woman because I had to be very mindful of how, well, like the decisions I made and how I navigated through the waters. Otherwise, you know, you could be accused of setting the movement back. You know, I didn't have that pressure back home of setting the movement back.
So
You know.
I want to explore that a little bit, and it's like what are some of the things that you would be considered setting the movement back?
Oh.
Because those are big words.
Yeah, well, yes, you know, and so you know, you have to be mindful. Well, things like you mentioned chivalry, so enjoying being respected and regarded enough to be able, just as one human being to another, to just do something nice, you know, do something helpful, as opening the door or pulling out a chair, whatever. Many like staunch feminists might see this as, oh, well, you can open the door yourself. This is like a sign of telling me or reminding me, you know, of the mindset that I'm unable to, you know, I'm helpless. You know, you're taking my power away. You're, you know, whatever the accusations are. And it's like, if you enjoy that or if you welcome that, then, you know, you're not the modern woman. You're a throwback, you know. So chivalry is one aspect, but more so even in personal relationships or intimate relationships, you know, between, you know, like with a boyfriend or with your husband, you know, there's also the judgment of if you stay home to raise the kids and you leave your career, then you're setting the movement back. You know, it's almost like, you know, motherhood. Be careful what you do with that. You can pop the kids out, but, you know, nothing too maternal because then you're going to set us back by, you know, reminding, you know, society that, you know, some women might want, like, might feel a need to be home. It's like we fought so hard to get out of the home. Don't do anything to, you know what I mean?
To possibly go back.
To possibly go back because no, then you'd be barefoot and pregnant and you've set the movement back. You know, it's ridiculous. It's about choice, right? So
We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about kind of along the same sort of lines because today there's society kind of says that men and women are equal and that we're the same, and so I guess the question is whether or not equal
Equates
means the
same?
same.
No.
Um, and there's been lots of conversations in and around this. Where women say we're the same as men, we're equal as men. We should get the same pay as men because we're the same and equal as men. We should,
Yes.
all these different things. I
Yes.
remember in the 90s, I believe it was, there were a lot of women, there's some women who um, lobbied the federal government because men could walk down the street topless, and it was illegal for women to do this. And they're saying, well, we're the same, we're equal, we should be able to do this as well. And they won the right in court to be able to do this. Um, so, yeah, when we come back from this quick break, I want to talk a little bit about this whole equal and the same, and
Yeah.
what your take is
Yes.
on that, and based on, I guess, viewing it from both sides of the ocean, as to how that works. So just a quick break here.
Okay.
The best internet radio station around. iLife Radio, the new social network.
And we're back. um, yeah, before the break, Rachel, I was asking you a loaded question, and
Yes.
and I think this is where a lot of guys sometimes we feel we're a little bit confused because, equal and the same sometimes are not the same. But the message that we hear a lot of times is that equal is the same. If a guy can walk down the street topless and nobody's going to say anything about it, then a woman should be able to walk down the street topless and nobody's going to say
Yes.
anything, mind you.
Yes.
If a guy does walk down, if it's a good-looking guy that's walking down the street topless, has got some muscles or something, there will be some women that'll say something about that guy. And if a guy was to make similar comments towards a woman, then there would be an issue with that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how does that work with?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself, right? And
You're speaking for all women right now.
But this is the thing, setting the movement back. Well, this is the thing. Equal rights, equal pay does not mean that you're the same in all aspects. No. And just because you're not the same doesn't mean that one is better than the other or more relevant or more of a contributor. Like it's not the same thing at all. And on the one hand, yes, if society could be so evolved where we can look at each other and not see gender, not see race, not see anything but just another living entity, that would be wonderful. However, I don't think we're there.
Yeah.
It's just a suspicion. I don't think we're there. Realistically speaking, I think at the end of the day, the message is equal rights, equal pay. Don't hold me back because of my gender. Don't judge me, because of my gender or, what have you. That I completely agree with. But to say, I cannot picture myself, strolling down the street topless and having the expectation of being not perceived differently. Anatomy is different. I think, we're human. We have, we're just not that evolved, as long as you don't come into my personal space and harass me, as long as you have, to treat someone with the basic dignity and respect another human being, really does deserve, it's all cool. But to have that expectation, no.
Do you think that there's a challenge with our society celebrating our differences? Because, when I think of men and women, we physically, biologically, we're very different. And
We're extremely different. Spiritually,
know
we're different. We're on every level.
There's a lot of, dare I say, blurring of the lines that are happening these days. There's a big push in Canada, for those of you who may not be aware of it, but there's a big push to remove gender from our birth certificates. because there's a movement out there that's saying that it's not really
Necessary?
relevant to the equation. Um, it seems like we're going in a direction that there's a concern about celebrating our differences. Um, what do you think about
Well,
that?
I think the danger lies in because we're not really addressing the problem, right? So the challenge we're having is not that gender is not an issue, it's the perception of gender, right? It's the attitudes, around gender. So until we change that, you can erase and erase and erase until you have nothing left. You'll still be dealing with hate. You still be dealing with discrimination, regardless. On a side, my name is Rachel Abba, and Abba is very prevalent in the Jewish community. Abba, father, in Hebrew, and there have been several occasions where I've showed up for a job interview, and the assumption was that I was a Jewish woman. And Rachel, Hebrew, you know, Abba. So they're
Yeah.
thinking, this is an Israelite. Anyway, I show up and I can see that there's a little bit of like, so your name, so even if you were to erase gender and the person shows up, you're still dealing with the issue, right, of the attitudes, the perception. So we have to focus on that more so than trying to, erase.
So there's a big push, to sort of blur the lines between genders. I don't even know if so much of a big push, but in the society today, there is a lot of conversation in and around that. And we were talking earlier about that young woman in the U.S.
Yes.
who identifies herself as black,
Yes.
and what did she said she was?
Self-identified?
She said she was transracial. Of course, I'm talking about Rachel Dolez, I believe her name is. I remember seeing the photos all over the internet over the past few weeks, and I didn't really know the story. And then when I started doing a little bit of reading about it, it was a little bit odd, I thought. But there are a lot of women who are saying that her choice to identify herself as a black woman. There are a lot of black women who are saying that belittles their experience as a black woman. I'm not sure how much of the story you know about this, but from your perspective,
Yes.
do you think that is it enough for us to identify ourselves as something else?
Well-
Based on our own perception, because society might consider me black, but I'm a mix of quite a few different cultures. Who gets to determine that I should view myself as black, or
Yes.
should I, if for a lot of individuals who are of mixed heritage, whether it's Japanese and black or Japanese and white, like who?
Well, the powers that be. Bottom line, because of the historical context of the one drop rule, right? It goes back to that. So it doesn't matter,
What's
if you
what's
can.
the one drop rule?
The one drop
Because there's some
rule,
people may not be aware of that.
which goes back to if you have even like a smidge of black blood in you, black genetic, markers that can be in any way, shape, or form, then you're considered black under the law, right? So because of that, society has kind of, moved on with this mentality firmly set in place that, a drop of black in you, anywhere in your family tree, that you can maybe kind of spot visually, you're black. Not because it is important for you to identify as such, but rather more from outward judgment of how you will be kind of funneled through the system. It'll determine how you're treated. It'll determine access to jobs. It'll determine access to housing. It'll determine, basically it'll determine your entire lifestyle and way of being under the law. So this is still relevant today.
Do you think that the conversation in and around her identifying as black, do you think, what do you think about that conversation?
For
Do you
me,
think it's relevant?
personally, it's of no consequence how she chooses to identify herself. It doesn't take away from the truth. The truth being that she misrepresented herself. And I don't really care if it's, she self-identified as black, self-identified as Asian, self-identified as Jewish, is of no consequence to me. The problem I see is the dishonesty, right? And if this were, for example, remember way back with the journalist who plagiarized and made up stuff, like made up stories, and he lost his job. Same thing in any workplace. You misrepresent yourself, you put things on your CV that you will get canned. The NBC anchor misrepresented himself, not looking good, right? Lost his entire reputation. He still has a career, but look, he's paying a price. I see it as the same thing in this instance. I think looking at it as a black issue takes away from what it is, right? And it is a woman who mindfully lied, misrepresented herself, lied to people, telling them, I know how you feel. As a black woman myself, it doesn't matter the point is, that was not your experience. Whether or not you were black and you happen to have, those experience, it doesn't matter. It is not, you were lying. I think would have been a lot more powerful, for her to say, I feel your pain. I, on the inside, feel as if, I'm a black woman, or I identify as being a black woman, even though perhaps my experience might not reflect yours. But you know what? I'm here with you because I think this is an issue that transcends color. You know what I mean? I think, she missed the boat. She missed a huge opportunity to really do what it was that she says was her heart's calling. And I hope that, she finds herself.
Sound very passionate about this. Do you think that that situation has helped the women's cause, or
Her
do you think-
situation?
like what the whole conversation in and around her, and what she's identifying herself
No,
as.
I don't
Do
think
you
it's a women's issue.
is-
I don't think it's a black issue. I think it's a mental health issue, pop and plain. It's a mental health issue. And this woman is going through some serious stuff that she's not dealing with, she's not facing. And if she needs help coming out as a black woman, that's like she's self-identifying, then by all means, let's have that conversation as a separate issue. But I think for someone to lie and live this, it's something completely different. No, I don't see it as a women's issue. I don't pull it into any of these streams at all. I see it simply as her experience, her issue. It's a mental health issue. She must need support. She must be going through some tough things, and she needs support in that light.
Those are strong words. Do you think that in our society, so something you said earlier,
Yes.
which I guess kind of ties into this, and that is, when you were growing up, you didn't identify yourself as black.
No.
It was a non-issue.
No, yeah.
And so, at some point, when you came to North America, you realized.
I realized I was black.
You realized you were black.
I got my black wake-up call, yeah.
The conversation that's being had I guess that is kind of being created by her is, dare I say, is society's view on race really relevant? Um, should we not be at a place wherein I see you as a human being,
We should be, but the
and
reality
not
is we are not, right? So it would be, there are many within the system who would love to see this go away, see it being race, gender, and, you know, blur the lines and we're all one, kumbaya, let's hug it out. No. They would love that to go away. Reason being, then we wouldn't have to go and actually take ownership. You know, then we wouldn't actually have to hold ourselves accountable for anything.
So what would we be taking ownership of, or
Taking
being
ownership
accountable
of the fact that we do see color and we do see gender. You know, taking ownership of our attitudes that actually infringe on other people's human rights. If you take that away, that's a slippery slope. As I said before, gender and color and any of our, you know, visual or visible differences are of no consequence if the attitude and the mindset is hateful. Taking that away, then it means you no longer have the right to even have the conversation to bring to light your, you know, negative experiences with others.
But if we take away the concept of race, doesn't that remove the, I guess, the prejudice that
No,
would be
it doesn't.
would exist?
If you
Because
take-
if
no.
everybody's growing up like you know, like you did when you're back in Africa, not knowing you were black.
Yes.
So, you know, if everybody kind of grows up with that, it's a non-issue.
But that can only work when you're predominantly that, and so there's no difference. But once you're thrown into a situation where there are differences, we're visual creatures. Like there's no way, you know, you have to change the attitude. So that way, when you see someone who looks different, you know, or sounds different, or I mean, this is across the board. You know, it's just our basic humanity. Like, how do we reconnect with, you know, like solid values of being, you know, being respectful, being compassionate, being empathetic, being kind. You know, these are these are the things that we need to focus on and you know, teach our children. So that way, when they go out into the world and they come face to face with difference, it is of no consequence to them. But without that upbringing, erase all you want.
A comment from the chat room from Just Georgia, and she said she agrees with you. She believes that this is this is indeed a mental health issue that's being played out.
And I say that not in judgment of her. You know, I'm looking at it as this is a woman who has been, you know, who felt the need to live a lie for a certain period of time. And that cannot be an easy experience to have. That cannot be, you know, for you to be moved to the point where you have to estrange yourself, you have to start like, you know, looking over your shoulder. This is stressful, you know, and it must have meant a lot or enough to her for her to make that type of a sacrifice or a leap to say, you know what, I'm going to risk everything to cover this up.
Well, okay, so I don't want to spend, you know, the whole show talking about
No.
we wanted to talk about her for a little bit, just to get your opinion on that. I do want to go back to a little bit about the contrast between, you know,
Yes.
Nigeria and when you came here.
Yes.
And what were some of the challenges that women faced that you saw in Nigeria? And then
I would say being taken seriously, in spite of, you know, just in general. This is not necessarily my village or
yeah.
particular group. Across the board, I would say one of the things that comes up often is being taken seriously. So you're often just kind of, just flagged off, as, you know, you're just a woman, or you're just being a woman, as if that's like a catch-all
Okay.
for just being able to shut you down. That would be the main issue, even though you look across, society, and women are extremely successful businesswomen, extremely successful in everything. That the opportunities are there. It's just when it comes, to a head,
Hmm.
that's usually how it's shut down with, oh, you're just a woman, shut up,
Hmm.
right?
And when you came to North America, what did you see here in contrast?
In contrast, I, I, for me, I don't live my life in terms of the color thing was more of an issue for me than the gender thing, because my experience with the gender thing here is, um, as long as you know the rules, as long as you know what your rights are, that you actually have a course of action, right?
Hmm.
So you can complain about it, you can escalate an issue, you can throw the gender card and people will scramble. It was not really. I see what the blocks are, but that is not a limitation
Hmm.
for me. They're much bigger issues in terms of, blocks than my gender.
And what are some of those
Some of
bigger
the
issues?
blocks,
Yeah.
bigger issues for me, I would say, in terms of, when I was younger, finding employment, so age more so than gender,
Hmm.
experience more so than gender, race more so than gender. These are all, one is not less important than the other, but from in my experience, the things that were more pressing, that
Hmm.
that I was made aware of very quickly. No one ever, you know, said I couldn't do or I couldn't be because I'm a woman. That was never my experience.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's definitely an issue, but not one that I've necessarily, you know, struggled with as
Okay.
much.
We're going to take another quick break, and but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, the modern man
Mm,
and trying to find his place with the modern woman.
yeah,
And um,
man.
hearing a lot of sighs in the
Ah,
room from
it's
these
tough.
guys.
It's tough. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit
Okay.
about that.
Let's dig into that. Let's dig into that.
So when we come back.
The internet's number one on the World Wide Web. iLive Radio.
Welcome back. And before we took the break with Rachel, I said that I wanted to talk a little bit about, the modern, I guess, in a way, the modern relationship.
Yeah, I
The
think
modern man, and it's
because what
so,
is that?
yeah,
What is the modern man and what's the modern woman? You
yeah.
know?
You're a modern woman. What are you?
Well, what does that
Yeah, what
mean?
does it mean?
I think for me, I just have to create my own experience and create for myself what it is I want to live out, really. And in a relationship, I think that's a very personal and sacred contract between you and your partner.
Hmm.
And you have to identify for yourself, first and foremost, what it is you want in a relationship as a human being. Like you're coming to the table bringing what and expecting what. What is the contract?
So, okay, there was a time, that's
Olden
sort of,
days, what?
sort of, a few more than a few years ago, uh, the there were roles that were really
Mm-hmm.
that men were expected to play, women were
Mm-hmm.
expected to play, and there's been a bit of a shift
Mm-hmm.
in how that today is being played out.
Yes.
And So there was a point in time when I think, in general, men had a good idea as to what the expectation was.
Yes, yes.
And that's evolved
Mm-hmm.
a little bit to the point where, and I think a lot of guys are trying to figure out what women actually want from us
Yes.
guys. And so, as a
Yeah.
woman, you know, what what does a woman of today actually want or expect from a
Well,
guy?
I don't know about a woman of today because I know a lot of women. I have a lot of, female friends
Mhm.
who are confused. They're just as confused
Mhm.
as to what they want, what they should want, what is okay. Will it make, there's this whole dance. And life is too short for that kind of dance.
Mhm.
You have to make up for yourself what is acceptable for you, not, what is being given to you as a should,
Mhm.
right? I should do, I should say, I should be. For me, set that aside because at the end of the day, you're the one in your home paying your bills, in your bed, your relationship. You have to be okay with it. You know, you have to be okay with it. So for me, sit down and have the tough conversations with your partner before you go down this path together, building a life, together. Define what that means for you. Define what your needs and expectations are. And, listen to what they have to say as well, and create something, customize your life that works for you. That's the way I see it, and for many people, they might make different decisions. For me, I know the decisions that I've made. For example, I'm here today. My husband is at home with the kids. He's not babysitting because they're his children. There's no such thing as a father babysitting his children.
Okay.
So just languaging, and if, he needs to go out to work and I look at my schedule, we just have to make a decision together, which will be of the most benefit to the family, not just financially, but also emotionally, psychologically. What do you like? What do you need so that you feel fulfilled in your life? If you have a calling and it's super, super strong and it's stronger than the one that I have, by all means, go out and get it done, and I will find my way too. And when it's time for me to answer my call,
Mhm.
you have to be there to hold the fort as well, but it's a give and take.
You had said that some of the women, some of your women friends.
They're confused.
Okay, so what are they? What are
Like
they
confused,
about?
messed up. Like they don't know whether they're coming or going or, I love you guys, but, it's like the mixed messaging that's coming, I don't even know where it's originating from, but it seems to be confusing both men and women. And I think at the end of the day, this is why I strongly encourage a conversation between, forget all the middlemen, just
Yeah.
come together and say, okay, this is how I feel, this is what I need. What do you have to say?
See, I think a lot of the struggle, though, for men is that things were kind of a certain way,
Yes.
and women have sort of come out and said, that way doesn't work for us.
Who are
We
these
need-
women?
Well,
I didn't come out and say anything. This is why I'm saying don't believe the hype. Deal on a case by case basis because what some women say outside and what they say behind closed doors are not the same thing.
Okay. So
Let's call that out.
So if the women are confused,
Yes.
some women are confused with what
Yes.
they want, and we're trying to figure out as a guy.
Don't- you're
we're
wasting
trying to-
your time.
We're trying
Don't-
to figure out
don't.
so don't figure out. What
Don't
they
guess. Don't guess because you're probably not going to get it right. You're going to be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it's all your fault, right? So look, have a conversation and every woman will be different.
Want. I understand that.
Hey.
The question I'm asking. the question.
Don't do extra
The question I'm asking is
work.
that if you're not sure, or if you're confused,
If I'm not sure,
yeah, so,
as
some
a-
of these women that you're talking about, right? They might be confused in terms of what they want.
Yes.
Right. And so, I'm trying to work with them to
You're
figure
not in
out-
the picture at this point in time.
Okay.
Don't even jump in to waters that are unclear.
Okay.
Trying to figure out
So if
what a
if-
woman. No.
So if they're confused about what they want,
She needs to
then-
sort herself out.
Then I should just leave her alone.
Give her space, give her love, hold space,
Mm-hmm.
but don't. If I don't know what I want,
Mm-hmm.
then I need to do my personal work to figure out what that is. Who am I? What are, like all the existential, questions?
Mm-hmm.
Know what it is, because you're setting yourself for failure and you're setting your relationship up for failure. If you go in confused, not knowing left or right, then you're going to be fighting all the time because you can't get it right. If I don't know, where are you going?
It's true. I agree with you.
It's pointless. So unless you come in and say, okay, honestly, I don't know what I want. I don't, you don't know what you want. Okay, let's figure it out together. But not together as in melding it together. No, you have to walk your independent paths of work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Not melding. No. Figure yourself out. I'm figuring myself out, but we're on this journey together. That's a different thing.
So, a good question in and around that. So, if, you're both figuring out your stuff.
Yes,
and you're
and
on
be
a
honest
journey.
about it.
And you're honest.
Don't
about
be
it.
pretending like you don't,
The-
that you do know.
So there's got to be a balance in there somewhere, or a bridge of some kind that needs to be made so that you can walk together.
It's
somehow.
called open, honest communication.
Mhm.
And be open to being completely vulnerable. Without that, there's nothing. You have to be willing.
See, the vulnerability thing, I think, is probably the biggest challenge for most people, though.
But isn't it always? Because there's huge risk. But without huge risk, how are you supposed to start a foundation built on honesty and true intimacy? Because that's what it is. This intimacy we're all hungry for and we all seem to be craving in companionship and relationship does not exist without vulnerability and does not exist without just throwing it wide open and saying, here I am, don't know, but here I am, and I'm willing to work, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to grow.
What is it that causes these women to be confused about what they want?
Mixed messaging. What I actually desire and what I'm being told I should want.
And by who, though? Is it by society, by family?
Well, I think
where are these mixed messages
it comes
coming
in
from?
different ways, right? So you hear from family all the time, oh, you're getting old, you should have kids, you should just get married. So there's that pressure. And then from society, oh, well, think of your career. You're an independent woman. You don't need anyone to pay your bills. You don't need anyone. You are enough on your own. You're an island, basically, So the two don't go together. Like, how do you create this other life of being an island, not needing anyone, being impenetrable? That in and of itself is the picture of invulnerability. So without vulnerability, you cannot have the other.
So if you've lived your life for 30, 40 years and you've created yourself as this island, and then all of a sudden you realize that being an island is kind of lonely. What do you do then? Because you might have a desire to be in a healthy relationship with someone, and everybody that seems to come in the picture seems to walk away after a while because nobody likes to,
Likes to feel useless, not needed.
Wouldn't it? I mean, I agree.
Being
Okay.
reminded all the time that I don't need you.
Okay.
I don't need your money. I can pay my bills. These are not sexy. And these are not, these don't inspire intimacy. Walls go up. No one wants to be with someone who keeps reminding you that you're not needed and that you don't have value in their life. We have to have a different conversation.
And what would that conversation look like?
Well, it's not just a question of I don't need you. Yes, I don't need you to survive, but I want you in my life because you are valuable, and I want to share with you.
Is there a sense of loss of power or loss of strength when you allow yourself to be vulnerable with
No,
somebody?
that is
Or-
the ultimate
No,
strength.
I'm thinking that maybe
That's the
that-
perception.
That's the perception
That's the perception, but
that
that's
keeps the walls up.
you miss when you know, take the time and look at, you know, I would encourage people, just go to the dictionary and just look it up.
Mhm.
You know, it's not, vulnerability does not equate weakness. Vulnerability does not equate neediness. Vulnerability is not, you know, a bad word.
Mhm.
It is where incredible courage, intimacy, and strength come from.
Hmm.
You know, this is the ultimate. I mean, think about it. When you know, who want someone who has all the answers all the time, someone who doesn't. This does not inspire connection at all. And I think as a society, just as a human race, forget men, women, as a human race, if we could each just trust enough to tap into that place of, I don't have all the answers.
Mhm.
I don't know everything, you know? And even though I could survive on my own, I choose not to, because I do want deep connections with others. I do want to foster relationships with others that are meaningful, that are not just like candy relationships of being told what I want to hear, but being told sometimes what I would rather not hear, if it is for the greater good, if it is for my own growth, if it's for my own, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
This is the kind of society, this is the kind of world that, you know, I would want to craft for myself. Surround myself with people who, you know, are okay with being vulnerable, because that's deep strength.
So for, I don't know what you tell your girlfriends who are a little bit confused, you know, but for the women who are listening, and for the men too, because there are a lot of guys who are,
Yeah.
you know, to be honest, we're we're trying to figure out exactly what it is that the women
Don't,
want,
and I'll tell you.
and a lot of times we're looking to you.
No, don't.
We're looking to, well, hear me out. Hear me out. I'm saying we're looking to you to kind of be able to say, you know, have a good sense of what it is that you want to create. So we know what we want to create, and we're going to create that. I can't speak for everyone, because there are some
Yeah,
men who, you know,
might
but
not know.
there are a lot of guys that I do talk to that we have a good sense of what it is that we are creating. And so when we do meet a woman, you know, we're looking at what they're creating in their life, and there's a lot of confusion in that. Again, not every woman's like this, so I don't want to start getting hate
I
mail
know.
or anything. Just saying that, you know, it happens. There's a lot of confusion about them, what it is that they're creating. Often what they desire is not what they end up creating. And so sometimes as a guy, you know, we kind of look at that and we're like, not sure what to do with that, because it doesn't exactly work.
Yeah.
So, you know, for what would you say to some of those guys out there that might
Well-
encounter that? Like, sure, we could just leave the women alone and just be
Well,
alone.
I mean, it's not
But
it's
how
not
does
that simple. It's not, no, that's absolutely not what I was saying. For me,
Mhm.
I know that, you know, there's no way that I'll be attracted to a man who is, you know, who is not on the same path
Mhm.
as me. So there's certain, you know, to get clear with certain values and expectations that I have. There's certain people who will not even show up on your radar,
Yes.
right? So the more of your, then this is the key, the more of your personal work you do, the less you will attract the people with whom you're not ready to be in relationship with. So you don't have to do all this. This is why I kept cutting you off. You don't have to do that guessing and shifting and compromising, and none of that will be necessary, because they won't even be attracted to you. If you're attracted to someone, then there's something in them that feeds whatever it is that still needs in you. Get yourself right where you are okay with you, and you feel not the need to prove anything or be anything other than or live up to, none of that. And the moment you do that, you will see the people
shift.
That's it.
Wow. I got to cut you because we're running out of time here. I got to bring you back. we gotta do this again because this has been it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I appreciate and I thank you for your candidness and being very straightforward in a lot of this. It's not often that a conversation's had wherein a woman would actually come out and say some of the things that you've said today. So that's actually kind of cool.
I hope I haven't set the movement back.
I don't know. You might start getting the hate mail. I don't know.
That's
on
all.
Facebook or something.
It's all good. It's all good.
You know, before we go, I just want to say that I want to thank everybody for joining us today and listening on the conversation. I know there was quite a few things that popped up on online in the chat room. I do apologize. I haven't been able to get to you because we were just sort of deep in it, in the thick of it. Some powerful things that you said, you know, and that is that vulnerability is really where the strength is.
Yes.
And it's not a sign of weakness, and being able to connecting vulnerability with weakness is really not a good thing.
No. It's inaccurate.
You know, you also talked about finding your own strength and deciphering, doing your own work for yourself to figure out exactly what it is that you are creating. Those are very, very powerful words. And I hope that for those of you who are listening, will tune in again as we explore some more of these conversations. I definitely, we've got to have you back and talk a little bit more about more about this stuff, because this is a good conversation.
Thank you.
We are going to be, we're not going to be having a show next week, but we'll be having a show the week after that. And format's going to be a little bit different than it has been. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot of communication coming out about the new show 2.0 that'll be coming up. Thank you guys for your time and for sharing it with us. It's been a lot of fun. Rachel, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay.
Best internet radio station around. iLife Radio, the new social network. Music back to back to back. iLife Radio. Rare groove, revival, slow jams, upfront, old school. The internet's #1 on the World Wide Web. iLife Radio.
Welcome to iLife Radio. Hi, I'm ODJ, your host from Amalgamation in Sound. Join me every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. where I'll bring you the very best in UK soul, house, broken beat, and everything in between. Remember to join in every Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. for Amalgamation in Sound. See you there.
Hey, what's going on, everybody in cyberspace? This is The Groove Show with your boy, the crowd pleaser, DJ Mark Anthony. Don't forget, each and every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m., we want to put you in the mood for whatever the night has in store. I'm playing only the best feel-good, party rocking, body-shaking music from funk to soul to reggae to R&B, house to salsa, and much, much more. We call it The Groove each and every Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Keep it locked. It's the crowd pleaser, baby. You know how we do. We'll see you on the air. Peace. You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
The best music around in stereo. Stereo sound.
Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we shall begin.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.